Hello and welcome to the Many Hats Podcast, where we explore the fascinating journeys of entrepreneurs and leaders who have donned multiple hats in their respective fields. Join your host, Stuart Forsyth, along with special guests, as they delve into the stories and insights of individuals who possess a unique blend of talents and expertise, making them true multidisciplinarians. Now, let's dive into today's episode.
So welcome to this very first Many Hats podcast. My name's Stuart Forsyth and I'm the owner of limelightmedia.co.uk, and this is a bit of a passion project for me in terms of starting a podcast. I've always wanted to do it, particularly because I'm somebody who's quite new to business and entrepreneurship, and I was dying to kind of sit down with a bunch of people and find out, how do you run your business, how do you do it, what are the ins and outs of it, and what are the many hats that you need to wear to make a business successful. So I'm really excited. This is my first episode and I hope you like it. So if you want to hear of upcoming episodes, then just make sure you hit the subscribe button and you'll be notified on whatever platform you're listening on just now. My first episode, and I'm dead excited to welcome my big cousin, no less, Daniel Robinson. How are you doing?
Very good.
Thanks.
I don't know how I feel about the big cousin tag.
Well, yeah. Well, yeah, that's the tag that I see you as first and foremost.
Right.
Obviously, look up to you as a big cousin, but also as a business owner and leader, and a lot of stuff that you've done over the years. So, I was quite keen to have you as my first guest.
First guest, no pressure.
No pressure. So this needs to be good, otherwise folk are not going to subscribe.
It's got to be highly inspiring.
Exactly. So thanks for coming down.
You're
Appreciate
welcome.
it. So you've come down from Glasgow.
Mm-hmm.
You're now living in Glasgow.
Living in Glasgow, north side of Glasgow.
And just moved back from Glasgow. You weren't living here for a while? You were across the pond?
I've just moved back from Glasgow.
No, you moved to Glasgow.
To Glasgow.
Because you previously weren't in Glasgow. Where were you?
So, beginning of 2021, moved back to Scotland, was in California for close to 10 years. And so Louise, my wife, she's a Lenzie girl, north side of Glasgow, and so it seemed like a good place to kind of get her feet on the ground and start life.
Yeah, I'm glad yous are back, big time. This is a podcast about entrepreneurship and business and stuff, and I'm keen for people who are listening to hear what it is that you do. So tell me a wee bit about your business, what you've done, and what's the journey that's kind of led you to this particular point in your life.
Well, probably a bit like you, stumbled into this now business unintentionally. I don't think the big plan was ever for it to be a business. It was a hobby. It's something that I would do for free, like you. And so I remember like reading something years ago, and it said, become good at something that you love doing because you love doing it. And if you become really good at it, then there's maybe a chance at some point down the road somebody will pay you for it. Mm. And so I stumbled into this accidentally. And so basically I'm a music producer. And I will say that to people because I think people sort of understand that, but obviously there's a lot more to it than that. But I'm a music producer, the key difference being that I'm the artist. And so a lot of music producers are working with other artists. In my case, 95% of the time I am the artist. So I produce music for different artists of my own that will go onto streaming platforms like Apple Music, Spotify, all the streaming platforms, but also the music that I make will also go into music licensing companies like MusicBed, which make sure my music gets onto TV and film and branding sort of projects.
Amazing.
So I'm a music producer.
You are the artist. It's funny you were saying that there about if you find something that you love, you'll get paid for it. Mm-hmm. And there's a kind of age-old saying as well that if you love what you do, you'll never work a day in your life. But I've actually found that to be the opposite. You know, that if you love what you do, you'll work harder than you ever have in your life. you've had a bunch of different jobs over the years as well that is far away from being a music producer, haven't you?
Very. People laugh when they find out you did that or you did this. I've our paths have crossed. Our career paths have crossed. Have they not?
A couple of times.
I've probably the job that I say that gets the biggest shock response is I used to work in a salon services, selling hair products.
That's right. I forgot all about that. I mean, I'm thinking you were a roofer.
I was a roofer, joiner, lifeguard.
Lifeguard.
There's going to be a lot of
inside jokes
only you and I will get, and maybe the extended family.
Yeah.
But the guests tuning in, they'll be like,
what are they talking about?
What was that? Help me understand.
Yeah, maybe if as we go along, we can maybe give a bit of insight, but we'll let that one slide. So George the lifeguard.
George the lifeguard. Roofer, lifeguard, salon services, sales consultant. Worked in homelessness a lot, and then ended up out in America as in full-time ministry as a worship pastor. A worship pastor, for the folks tuning in who may not understand that language, it's basically the person responsible for overseeing the music in church services. And then we became the pastors of the church. So that was the last job that we had that wasn't business.
So then it took you, but as you were working in Fresno in California, you were doing your music stuff on the side to an extent. You're now at a point, I mean, I was just looking at Spotify there, you've got over 480,000 monthly listeners just on your own artist page. Like that's not even everything else that you do, and that's just Spotify. So that's some incredible numbers that you've kind of amassed over the years. What does it take to get to that point? I'm on Spotify and I've got 5 monthly listeners.
Yeah, it's interesting that, I remember there was a day. So I remember the aha moment. So we're working full time for a church, and when you work in ministry, in the church world, it's a well-known thing that you don't get paid a lot of money. So I remember thinking, what can I do to maximise income? And I remember thinking, I wonder if I could make some music. And I remember saying to Louise, my wife, wouldn't it be amazing if we could make enough a month with music as a wee side hustle to like make a car payment where we could get a new car. And so that was, so you talk like what, £200 a month, $250 and that was like the goal then, to make enough a month to make a car payment. And so there's, everybody starts somewhere. So you're saying 480,000 monthly listeners, but I remember there was 10 monthly listeners, and then there was 500 monthly listeners, and then it grows just organically. So I would say that the short, quick answer is, what does it take to get there? It just takes patience, perseverance, having a sort of longer term vision of what it could become, not getting discouraged at the setbacks, at the lack of growth, but just sort of staying committed and consistent.
And was there a strategy in that, in terms of, you're sitting talking about long-term visions and goals? I mean, I remember the days you were doing YouTube videos, and you kind of racked up quite a good amount of subscribers at that particular point. Was that part of the strategy of then saying, right, I'm going to go onto streaming platforms like Apple Music and Spotify, or was the original goal like, oh, I'm going to be a YouTuber, so to speak?
Yeah, I mean, if we're using it like content creator, we're content creators. We create digital content in the hope that will lead to sort of financial gain, or a growth in our platform. So I remember doing the YouTube videos. And the goal was to grow my subscribers, and so I remember, it was like a 6-month experiment of making weekly Music Monday videos.
Yeah.
Mostly doing acoustic covers, and the experiment was if I commit to this for 6 months and do a video every week, how fast, how effective will that be in growing the channel? And so I remember up until that point, I think I was at about 600 subscribers, and it took me 8 years to grow.
8 years?
8 years to get 600 subscribers.
Wow.
Which was very sporadic video releases and not very committed or consistent at all. But in that 6-month period, the subscribers went from 600 to 4,000.
Really?
In 6 months.
That quick?
Aye.
I've heard that quite a few people that are on YouTube, you know, that, and it can be quite discouraging if you're long-term in it and you feel like, oh, I'm not getting many subscribers or people engaging with my content, and then all of a sudden it just takes maybe 1 or 2 videos or one or two songs that then all of a sudden you see this exponential growth, and it's quite interesting hearing you say that as well.
Yeah, I think, and that was all organic. You know, just posting videos, doing the best that you can to tag and come up with interesting tags, and but that only lasted 6 months. I think I hit a point where I realised at the end of that, I suddenly became aware of the earning potential of Spotify.
Okay.
And that was a game changer, and I thought I can either invest my time into YouTube and continue to try and develop this, or I can give my time and efforts to this new avenue, which seemed to hold the potential to yield more financial gain.
Love it. I've kind of looked on for many years, as you know, with admiration for that.
Now it's the other way around.
Well, I wouldn't say so. I mean, I still look at your stuff and go, oh, man, I wish I could. And you do, you know, you obviously give a lot of wee nuggets of wisdom, especially to me. Which
Both ways.
I've just had a flashback of you in your bedroom playing the piano.
Finger drumming,
and me kind of looking over your shoulder and going, how did it do that? And trying to copy you and find out how you do it. But you're somebody that's, you know, you're naturally talented as a musician. A lot of things come to you really naturally. I mean, you put your hand to many things. You wear many hats, and you do it well. What are the different hats that you wear in terms of making your business a successful? Because like you're saying, you're a musician and you're the artist, you're the brand, but it's more than just sitting down recording a song to then be successful in what you do. So what are the different hats that you wear to make your business a success?
So different hats are, I'm the songwriter.
You're not a chat GPT guy. It's all natural.
It's all organic. I haven't tapped into the world of AI songwriting yet, but that might be something for the future, for the next episode.
Wow.
So I'm the songwriter. I'm the producer. I'm the mixing engineer. And so that's just the music side. But then there's the administrative side of the world of publishing, the world of music distribution, the label side of things, collecting royalties, song releases, graphics, videos, which is your world, and I'm often getting your support with that. So, you know, the modern day music artist, now I would say now is the best time in history to be a creator, an artist, a songwriter. But you know, I was reading somewhere last year, and it was saying that the people that are able to ride through the waves of change and technology are the ones who they call them the Renaissance people. It's people who have figured out a way to be self-sufficient. And so they've become self-sufficient, and they've accumulated various skill sets, and so that's the sum of the hats that I need to wear. And so, you know, when you're independent as an artist, you know, you can either learn these skill sets or you need to lean on other people. But oftentimes leaning on other people has an expense, a financial expense, and so I wasn't in the position to hire those services, and so you commit to learning, watching YouTube videos, reading books, buying books, and so there's two pathways. You either learn the skill set, which again I know you'll relate to. That's been your life. It's the self-knowledge, it's the self-sufficiency, or you have more of a partnership thing. Now I would love to partner with people, and I do now, but back at the beginning, you kind of have to just figure it out yourself. So Canva.
Oh man, we don't use that word in this podcast. That's almost like blasphemy.
I know. This is where you roll your eyes. We roll our eyes at each other with different things.
Oh, I'm sure.
I'll get the logic stuff in from you, and I'm like, Stu,
What have you done?
and then you'll get the graphic things from me.
It's not even Logic. Sometimes it's GarageBand that I'm sending you.
Well, you've climbed.
Yeah, I'm really loving Logic right now, especially since getting a wee bit of insight to it and how it actually works. I'm probably spending too much time on it because I'm not a music producer by any means. It's very much a hobby to me, so I would love to.
Well, GarageBand is the sort of Canva of my world.
Yep.
And so that's some of the hats, and that's kind of the things that, you know, needs to happen in order to keep the business thriving.
Yeah. You've how many years have you been at this now then, would you say?
Intentionally, I started probably about 2017.
Okay.
And so when I say intentionally, I mean it kind of manoeuvred from being just a hobby to an intentional, like, I'm doing this with a goal of being, of earning money.
Yeah, self-sufficient, and yeah, I get that. So a good 7 years at it. What would you say has been some of the challenging things that have been a part of establishing a business and a brand and navigating through? I mean, in this kind of day and age, it can be quite difficult to become noticed as an artist, as a creative. What would you say have been some of the challenges that you've faced to and had to navigate through to make your business successful?
Challenges for me would be networks, growing your networks, building relationships with people who, I guess, have something that you need, and so that's probably the biggest challenge to business, is finding, you know, like in the world of music licensing. So music licensing is, you know, making music for, you know, TV and film. The challenge growing in that world is getting invited into working with these people. And so the initial sort of, you know, putting the feelers out and trying to build a professional relationship, sometimes you're just not good enough. Sometimes the music's just, it's not good enough. And so you're emailing just to say, you know, hey, I would love to be an artist on your roster working with this business. And there's just rejections. You know, they'll listen and say, oh, you know, we're not quite, this is not the sound we're looking for. And so that's a challenge to get into these circles, because sometimes your stuff's just not, it's not good enough, and you need to go back to the drawing board and decide, am I going to grow and get better? And so that's probably been the biggest challenge, is figuring out the puzzle of becoming good enough to work with these different companies.
How do you deal with that kind of rejection? If somebody comes back to you and says, nah, you're not quite what we're looking for, and is that quite difficult to hear? Because you will have spent hours upon hours probably on one track alone for somebody to come back and say, that's not quite what we're looking for. How do you deal with that type of rejection?
I actually, I would say for me, oftentimes the way I described that there is probably not how direct they were in their communication.
Okay.
But I probably needed them to be that direct.
Okay.
So oftentimes they're much nicer than that, or they'll just kind of fob you off with some excuse. Oh, we have enough of that music right now. But the reality is, and I figured this out, it just wasn't good enough.
Okay.
And so it's not that people were being that direct. I think I just put two and two together and realised that. But actually probably what I needed, and maybe this could, again, speak into the question, what's been the challenge? I think for me, another challenge has been people that would be honest enough to tell me.
Okay.
I think I have the kind of personality that I'm just like, can we just quit the BS and just tell me?
Yep.
Because I want to grow. I think I've got a thick enough skin to hear the hard truth. And so I found it a challenge to get people that will be honest enough to say your songwriting's rubbish. Your mixing's just not there yet. Your voice is just, it's not what we're looking for.
Wow. I just don't think I could take that type of rejection. What movie's that out of again? Toy Story. Yeah. I don't know if I could deal with that.
Really?
You know, I think I struggle big time for imposter syndrome. Like in the work that I do, I love what I do, you know, and every single day I turn up to work, there's no 2 days that are the same. And there has been times for me personally where I've had clients come back and say, no, that's not what we need. And probably similar to what you're saying there, they maybe phrase it in a way or even just ghost me to that extent, you know.
Oh, I've had a lot of the ghosting.
Yeah. And that's, I think I've maybe made my peace with that. But if you were to turn around to me and say, Stuart, that was garbage, I don't think I could deal with that type of rejection. But imposter syndrome for me is a big deal then. So if a client, so we parted way with a client about 2 years ago, and it just weighed in my mind for months, thinking, I'm no good enough. And it's quite easy to kind of get into that rut of, oh, well, maybe I just shouldn't be doing this at all. Maybe it's just not worth it or whatever. And, but you've not found that yourself?
I think I've always just been aware that in life there's just always going to be people that's better. So I think I know that there are more talented singers, there are more talented songwriters. So I think I'm just aware of that, and I'm also aware that there are people sort of behind me that are maybe trying to get to where I've gotten to, and so I mean, so an interesting thing is I just released my album Plug.
Yep.
Released it at the end of last year, and I'm listening to it, and so I'm aware as I'm listening to it, I can hear the shortcomings of the mixing, the performances, the creativity, and I'll listen to other albums of people just that I aspire to sound like and aspire to be, and so it maybe does create a wee bit of a, why do I even bother? You know, but I would say there's a louder voice in me that says you can get there. You know,
I like that.
You can. I think that there's a more hopeful voice in me that's sort of spun on by the I want to. I want to get there. I want to get to that level, and so I think it's just a trait in me. I think I've always just had this determination to just try and improve myself. I think it's just something that I've, especially when I see results. I think results encourage, and you can see, right, okay, my goodness, I made a wee bit of money doing something, you know, and I got on that playlist and I got those streams, and so that gives you the encouragement, like, okay, I can keep going.
What's been what would you say has been your best piece of work that you've put out there? One of the things that you're probably the most proud of, or say that was definitely worth the effort?
Well, like you, I know you'll relate. I'm also my own biggest critic.
Yeah.
And so Louise, she'll often, get me into trouble because maybe I just play things down and I don't really celebrate the wins. And I don't know, maybe other people around me will marvel, like, oh my goodness, I can't believe you just got that amount of streams. And I'm just sort of like, I think it's because I'm just aware of what it took. There's no, I don't know. What's the proudest work? The thing that I've done best. I think the last piece of work that you made has to be the best piece of work that you've made, because I think we evolve. We should be.
Yep.
If we're getting worse at what we do, then that's a problem. The only thing is, there's probably not many people around us that are going to tell us we're getting worse.
Yeah.
So we need to, I guess, self-reflect.
You don't settle for mediocrity, do you?
Probably.
Done is not better than perfect for you. It's not to say that you strive for perfect every time, but mediocrity is just not an option, is it?
I would actually say I'm not a perfectionist at all. I think there's other people out there who make music and sing, who probably struggle with perfectionism, where they're not going to put out that song until every single detail, every frequency, the vocal performance is perfect. I would say you reach a point where you just sort of think, okay, that's enough.
Okay.
Like, I listen to music and I can hear imperfections that of stuff that I've made, and sometimes you cringe. Like, I was listening, yesterday I was listening to someone, I released an acoustic cover of Heatwaves, Glass Animal song, which has done really well, just past 7 million streams. But actually I was listening to it yesterday and I could hear wee mouth noises in the mix that I've...
Some folk are really into that, by the way. ASMR, it's called. But for you, you can hear that.
Yeah. And what I would say is, in the music world, sometimes mixing engineers, they hear it and they deliberately leave it in.
Right.
There's a deliberate choice to leave it in because they feel it adds to the authenticity. I would say my music production, I'm quite clinical. I like a really clean, clinical, polished sound, and so I like to get rid of all those noises, and so I listened back yesterday. I'm like, oh goodness, I didn't hear that.
That's interesting, because that song, like you're saying, is now surpassed, what was it you said, 7 million streams. It's amazing. It's unreal.
But again, I guess it highlights we can strive for perfection, but sometimes perfection is it's a myth. It doesn't exist, and that perfectly polished song wasn't required to get streams. I listened to some of the other songs and I'm like, I would never put that out now.
Right.
But then there's kindness towards myself, because that's all I knew at that time.
Okay, yeah.
No,
I can relate to that. I kind of think about my graphic design stuff, and there's stuff that I look back on and go, oh my goodness. But at the time I probably thought, that's really good, or it's the best that I can do at this particular time. And then I look at stuff that I've done recently, and I take on that point of, your next work should be your best work, because otherwise you're just stagnant or you're going backwards. I like that. As we kind of come towards the end of the podcast, I want to talk gear. Because I love talking gear, especially, so in my studio there's just gear everywhere, and then when people start talking to me about gear, I just can't shut up about it. And your studio was something quite impressive. Over the years, you, a bit like myself, you've kind of built up some of the gear that you use. What does it take to make a good song? What does it take for you? Like, we're using some wee road pod mics here, where the plosives are ridiculous. You know, what's some of the gear that you've amassed over the years that now is just in that sweet spot of making a good song?
I've always been a believer in maximising what you have in the here and now. I think all of us want to have the best. I've got friends who are very frugal, and they'll not invest until they really need to. Like the mic is like gone, and they'll wait until. I have the opposite problem. I like good stuff, but I think I've always known that good gear doesn't make you better. It can improve things, but I think I've always just known that, believed in the whole get the best out of what you have and just sort of progress. So you'll see kind of people who are just starting off in the industry and they're buying really expensive plugins, but they actually don't know how to use them. They're buying really expensive mics or guitars or whatever it may be. And so I'm definitely a big believer in you need to figure out how to use the stuff before you get the stuff, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I like that. I was watching a YouTuber a while ago, and he made a bit of a tongue-in-cheek joke about it, you know, where he sets up, you know, I think it was a C20 camera and an SM7B microphone and softbox and all sorts of things. And then he says, so this is why gear doesn't matter. And of course, it's like, all this hundreds of stuff. But the reality is that we all start from somewhere, isn't it?
Yep.
And, you know, for me, my first camera was I think it was a Nikon D7000, I think it was. I'm pretty sure it belonged to my dad. Now that I think about it, he had this phase where he was just starting to like digital cameras and stuff, and for me, I just get the bug for it. And I think with that first camera, I think it filmed in maybe 720p, and I filmed my cousin's wedding, and I look back at it now and go, oh my word. But that's where we start, isn't it? You just use what you have, and I like that point, you know, you learn that gear as best as possible, become the best that you can be at it, and then invest more.
I remember, I'm old enough to, you know, cassette tapes were a thing, VHS, and so you're probably just old enough.
Yep.
But I remember making music on cassette tapes, and so you would have two cassette tape players, and you would record into one, you playing the guitar, and then you would play that back, but hit record on this one, so that would hear the guitar that you recorded plus the new dub, which is your voice,
right?
And you would just keep overdubbing on these cassette tapes.
And that had to be a one-take wonder. Couldn't afford to make a mistake.
No mixing, nothing. But that was the origins of becoming a producer, a mixing engineer. And
do you remember minidiscs as well? Remember you?
Minidisc, that was supposed to take over the world.
Oh man, I remember thinking it was the best thing, and it's like listening to some of the recordings that you had made and going, yeah, this is it.
No, I love gear, and you know, now I'm in a really blessed, privileged position to have high-end gear, and you know, and try to make the most out of it. But I really believe nowadays, you know, if you're kicking off in the music world, you know, you don't have to invest a lot of money to get a really professional sounding song.
Which is interesting. I think back to like remember Daniel Bedingfield, you know, and he wrote that song, Got to Get Through This, and then all of a sudden it started to emerge that this guy recorded this in his bedroom, you know, and it was like, is that a thing? But now it absolutely is a thing. You know, you fire up a laptop with GarageBand. GarageBand, as you used to call it, with a microphone and, you know, a wee interface, and yeah, you can create something relatively good.
Well, I think the principle of you could put really entry-level gear in the hands of an expert and they'll make it sound incredible. And then the opposite way around, you can put high-end gear in the hands of a beginner and they'll not know what to do.
Yep.
But when you get the perfect blend of those two examples, it can be amazing. So I love gear. I tried to, I could spend too much. But I try to be sensible. Does
Louise ever crack up, like if you just go out and buy something and you're just like, I need to buy it?
You know, I think I'm quite fortunate. you know, I've got a wife who I'll get the eye rolls. I'll get the occasional eye rolls. Do you really? And sometimes I've said to her, look, babe, I need you to call me out. I need you to hold me accountable. I've got everything I need to make music. See if in like 6 months you hear me talking about a new mic or a guitar, you need to tell me, no, Dan. Because that day does arrive, it comes.
Yep.
And I usually find a reason to say, I need that mic.
Right, okay.
So
Good on you, Louise. Well done.
yep, she keeps me on the ground.
Just as we finish up, it's great getting a bit of insight to what you do. And there'll be people out there that are, you know, budding musicians, perhaps, that will no doubt just want to glean so much information off you. I'm pretty sure you get it all the time. How to become famous on Spotify sort of thing. But if you were to have kind of one nugget of wisdom for somebody who's starting out in business and maybe as a musician, what would it be? What would be your kind of key nugget of wisdom that you would say, do this?
Well, I would say in my world of being an artist, a music artist and a producer, I would say best advice for 2024 is nowadays it'll cost you for a 4 or 5 song EP, it could be anything between $3,000 and $5,000.
Is it?
For an EP? High end, that would be a really talented producer. My advice would be save the $3,000-5,000 and invest in yourself. It's tricky because some people just don't have the desire to skill up and improve themselves, but that would be my advice. Keep that money, buy gear and learn. Think long game, think 5 years out. In 5 years, I want to be self-sufficient. I want to be my own producer, my own mixing engineer and be the artist. And I think being in that position of being completely self-sufficient, it just puts you in a stronger position where, you know, you've just got the skill sets to do things yourself. So that would be my advice. Invest in yourself, in knowledge, in gear, and set yourself up.
Love it. Mm-hmm. Daniel, thanks very much.
You're welcome.
I appreciate your time and your insight to your business. And so in the comments, you'll be able to see all of Daniel's handles, and you can go and subscribe to him and follow him. And if you want to subscribe to this podcast, again, you can find it all underneath at the Many Hats podcast with Stuart Forsyth. I'd love it if you'd subscribe. There's going to be lots of good guests coming up over the coming months, and lots of good insights to how to run a business, some of the peaks and pitfalls of it, and what you can learn from it. So hit the subscribe button, and we'll see you in the next episode.
Thanks for listening to this episode of the Many Hats Podcast. Remember to hit subscribe to be notified of all new episodes. For any questions or topic ideas, you can reach Stuart on Instagram at many_hats_podcast. We'll see you next time.